Hello everyone, welcome to Broadview. My name is Joseph. In episode 7 of TV series House of Cards, Tibetan monks are creating a piece of intricate sand art. The monks' art is called sand mandala. As this art peacefully comes to life, it offers a glimpse into the solemn and mysterious land of Shambhala. In Tibetan Buddhism, Shambhala exists in the depths of the Himalayas. Legend has it that this hidden kingdom has far more advanced technology than we will ever know. In this land, there's no suffering like poverty, disease, or aging. In Sanskrit, Shambhala means the land of tranquility. In this kingdom of untouched paradise, the godlike people enjoy happiness and peace. But legend also has it that the world's greatest power can also be found in Shambhala. With the ambition to rule over the world, Germany, the Soviet Union, the United States, and Japan have sent expedition teams to Tibet in order to locate the entrance to Shambhala. Has Shambhala been found? Where is it located? Well, without further ado, let's dive into the story of Shambhala. In May of 1923, a special expedition set out from New York to the small town of Darjeeling in West Bengal, India. Nicholas Roerich led this expedition. Nicholas was a well-known Russian painter, philosopher, and Orientalist, writer, archaeologist, and explorer. He devoted his life to exploring uncharted territories and received 3 nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize. He drafted the Roerich Pact. This treaty was signed by representatives of 21 countries. It stresses the protection of cultural heritage over military needs. Inspired by the mystical cultures of the East, Nicholas went on a lifelong quest to the search for the kingdom of Shambhala. His wife Helena Roerich was also a keen student of Eastern philosophy. She engaged in telepathic communications with spiritual entities. George D. Roerich was Nicholas and Helena's eldest son. He was fluent in 28 Asian languages. On top of being a notable Tibetologist who could speak the local dialect of Sanskrit, he was also a very skilled military tactician. As a vital strategist, George was in charge of keeping them alive during this expedition. In August 1925, the team arrived in Leh, the capital city of Ladakh in India. And then they traveled 25,000 kilometers through India, Russia, Mongolia, and finally they arrived in Tibet. Their final destination was naturally the mysterious land of Shambhala. They were closely monitored by Soviet, American, British, and Japanese intelligence. Despite being followed by spies, the entire crew seemingly disappeared from the face of the earth after reaching Tibet in August 1927. Now in May 1928, almost a year later, the crew reappeared and went on their way back to Darjeeling, India. When Nicholas published 2 books, Shambhala the Resplendent and Shambhala in Search of the New Era, it was discovered in retrospect that the expedition had actually arrived at the legendary Shambhala during its disappearance. In fact, Roerich's itinerary sketch showed that the expedition basically circled around the entire Central Asia, Mongolia, Siberia, and Tibetan Plateau to look for the entrance of this legendary Shambhala. So what was the Shambhala kingdom like when the Roerich expedition team discovered it during the first trip to Asia? Roerich's diary described that they were detained and forced to go up to the north to the Soviet Union. On the way there, an old monk led them to the entrance of Shambhala. Shambhala's topography resembles a giant 8-petaled lotus flower, with the entire lotus flower surrounded by snow-capped mountains. There are also snow-capped mountains surrounding each of the petals and the core of the lotus flower. Each petal contained 120 million cities. Every group of 10 million cities is governed by a king, for a total of 96 kings. The Shambhala kings live in the central temple where the most complete Buddhist teachings of Sakyamuni are preserved. The inhabitants live following the Buddha's wisdom and have reached high levels of enlightenment. They've attained the rainbow body and achieved immortality just like the rainbow light as mist while emitting dazzling light. The reason that the Shambhala kingdom hasn't been discovered by the mundane world is that it's hidden by the supernatural powers or by a magical spell. The Roerich expedition to Shambhala caught the attention of the German Nazis. In 2004, Russian weekly newspaper Arguments and Facts published an article called Hitler's Tibetan Plan. The article uncovered a secret that's been hidden for over 60 years. The article began with the story of Atlantis. Atlantis is an ancient legend that originated in Europe, and we've done videos on this before. It's said to be a continent of unparalleled wealth, where a race of divine beings or gods with extraordinary powers lived. If you're interested and you want to learn more, feel free to watch our past programs on Atlantis. The earliest record of Atlantis is in the ancient Greek philosopher Plato's dialogues in 350 BC. Plato explained that Atlantis was destroyed by a prehistoric flood in 10,000 BC. The survivors of the flood escaped by ship and settled in India and Tibet. Later, they kept moving to the northwest and south. As the story goes, the Aryans and Indians descended from the Atlanteans. The Nazis believed that Germans are the true Aryans, who were the descendants of the gods who had moved from Central Asia to Europe. Heinrich Himmler, Hitler's right-hand man, was convinced of this myth. He wanted to prove that the Aryans were descended from the gods, and that the Aryan race means the distinct and superior race of Germanic people. In 1938, Himmler sent an expedition to Tibet in search of the remnants of the gods. The expedition team was warmly received by the local inhabitants upon arrival in Tibet, but the local Tibetans were unaware of the real purpose of this team's visit. They measured and recorded the skulls, facial features, and body proportions of over 300 local Tibetans, collected their fingerprints and handprints, and compared this data in detail with other ethnic groups to screen the purity of the people there. In August 1938, the expedition left Tibet and returned to Germany. Himmler declared the expedition a huge success. It seemed that the theory of racial superiority had been supported by his findings. But more importantly, the expedition team learned from the local Tibetans that deep in the heart of Tibet, there was a place called Shambhala, where the Earth's infinite energy was hidden. Whoever gained control of this energy would become immortal and possess supernatural abilities. As it's told, they would be able to control time and space at will. The legend of Shambhala prompted the Nazis to send a second expedition into Tibet. In January of 1943, the Austrian Nazi Heinrich Herr led the second expedition to Tibet. No one can be sure where in Tibet they had actually went, but by the end of the war, only Herr and one other member of his expedition survived. Many believe that Herr had already found Shambhala back then, but it's thought that the Nazi plan never worked because they didn't know how to control the energy. The intriguing part about this story is that some local Tibetans claimed that they had seen Herr and his expedition team near the peak of Kangrin Bok, which is believed to be the center of the world in Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, and Hinduism. It is viewed as a sacred place that cannot be climbed casually. The whole peak is made of red rocks towering above the surrounding snow-capped mountains. In Buddhist scriptures, Shambhala is also surrounded by snow-capped mountains. That's why local Tibetans say that the entrance to the Shambhala is in the Kangrin Bok peak. In the late 1960s, a Tibetan Lama named Talshuk Lingpa led a group of 12 followers to look for the Shambhala. In the past 700 years, many lamas have tried to open the entrance of Shambhala, but no one has succeeded. Lingpa's master had tried to open the door of Shambhala. Before leaving, he told Lingpa that he would depart for Sikkim to open the entrance to Shambhala, which was a difficult and dangerous journey. His master said that if he did not return, he hoped Lingpa could continue on with his mission. Without hesitation, Lingpa agreed. He never saw his master after this, and none of his 30 followers that the master took with him came back. So Lingpa became a lama at a young age, and he thought carefully about how to find Shambhala to fulfill his master's dying wish. One day during a meditation session, Lingpa received a revelation from the spirits and learned that he was the Lama who had been prophesied to open the entrance to the blessed land and that the time had come. Later he received another revelation in which the spirits drew a detailed map of the entrance to Shambhala, which is located on the glacier of Kanchenjunga. The story of Lingpa is written in the book A Step Away from Paradise by Thomas Shore, who interviewed Lingpa's son and followers. In the fall of 1962, Lingpa began his journey to look for Shambhala, praying as he went and also constantly verifying the route shown to him by the spirits. Opening the entrance to Shambhala required not only the right lama, but also the right time. The timing was difficult to grasp, and once missed, it could even risk Lingpa's life. By the early spring of 1963, Lingpa believed that the time to open the entrance of Shambhala was fast approaching. He set out from camp with 20 followers to climb the glacier. Halfway up the mountain, they stopped at a cave. Based on the map, they needed to cross a small valley below the cave and climb the opposite slope to reach the entrance of Shambhala. but they were forced to stay inside the cave because of severe weather conditions. And they tried for 19 days without making any progress. By this time, the water and food that they had brought with them were running low, so Lingpa told his followers to stay in the cave. He only brought one follower with him and took a different route to get to the top of the mountain. And they succeeded. They suddenly saw beautiful natural landscapes and green forests appearing on the glacier, as if they had suddenly switched to another time and space. They also heard music and saw tall entities walking around. Of course, Lingpa's follower got very excited and wanted to take a closer step into the spectacular scene. But Lingpa stopped him, explaining that they could not leave the others behind and had to go back and bring them along. So they returned to the cave. After returning to the cave, Lingpa sat alone on a rock and began to chant the scriptures. A white pillar of light came down from the sky and enveloped him. Colorful clouds appeared and 4 white doves flew around him from nowhere. According to the recollections of the followers, Lingpa probably sensed the ominous sign at that time, but he didn't say anything. The next day he took 12 followers with him to try again to reach the summit. The sky was clear at this time, and in the last part of the ascent he took only 3 followers. The group of 4 was trying to advance in the snowdrift when an accident suddenly happened and an avalanche fell from above, burying Lingpa under the snowdrift. By the time the followers dug him out, he had already died peacefully, but he didn't have any injuries on his body. This trip to explore Shambhala came to a sad end, and they were only 1 step away from Shambhala. Some say it was because Lingpa had to return to bring other followers, and so he missed the moment, causing the entrance to Shambhala to close and paying the price of his own life. While some speculate that some of Lingpa's followers were not worthy of entering Shambhala, and he should not have insisted on bringing them along. It's also said that in fact, Tulshak's soul has already entered Shambhala. Because according to Tibetan Buddhism, the most important condition for entering Shambhala is the purity of the human heart and soul. For the Shambhala kingdom, where cultivation has already gone beyond the material body to achieve the rainbow body, it values not anything in the human world, but rather the elevation of one's spiritual state. It's just like the sand paintings I mentioned at the beginning. Lamas spend months laboriously depicting the strange world of the Buddha, only to erase everything after a short puja ritual, reducing it all to nothing in an instant without hesitation. But while the physical pieces were destroyed, the world of the Buddha became increasingly solid in the Lama's mind over the repeated process of arranging and destroying the sand art. Perhaps this is the supreme doctrine hidden in the Shambhala Buddha kingdom. The prosperity of the world is nothing but a handful of sand, and everything will return to its origin in the end. Well, that's all for today's story. What do you think about this? Feel free to tell us your thoughts in the comments section below, and we'll see you next video.